Hey guys, some stupid sketch show guy here with another episode of Dinotube Achievements. And today's Dinotube achievement is a very special one as it is the only Dinotube achievement thus far, excluding Best Dinotube Reviewer, that has been decided via community vote. But this is the first one done on my channel. The other one was done on Rick01's channel because I didn't have enough subscribers yet. But things have changed. Haha, get wrecked. Jokes aside, this vote was based on the achievement of the best Dinotube show of 2020. And it was a landslide victory. There's no nice way of putting it. It was very clear what people considered the best show of the year, and that is the Paleoverse. And I'd say that this is impressive for a couple of reasons. The main reason being the fact that the Paleoverse had a pretty rocky start as a show in general. There are many different ways that the Paleoverse just started out kind of bad. For one, the quality in the first episode was definitely significantly worse than what would eventually become the standard. But that isn't just it. There was also parts of it that were simply out of the show's control. Mainly the fact that the Paleoverse was introduced during major drama between Robert Brady and the dinosaur discovery, which was admittedly very stupid, and I do admit that I did take part in it, and I didn't exactly do a good job whatsoever. But that's in the past, as now the show has returned about 2 months ago, and it came back with a vengeance, as the second time around, with the drama dying down and opinion swaying more towards Discovery, the show was respected a lot more and quickly gained a huge following amongst the Dinotube community, gaining hundreds of views every episode, and having many different people inspired to make their own Paleoverse series. In a way, the Paleoverse has become the new Dinosaur Island, with people making spin-offs to it with varying degrees of quality.
As if I'm gonna believe that. Holy crap, there's a snowstorm! Ah!
With the biggest of these spin-offs being the new rebooted Dinoverse series, which I will say is quite ironic, since in its original inception, the Paleoverse series was considered a ripoff of Legends of the Dinoverse, but eventually the show became so big, and the opinion changed so much, that the Dinoverse has now become a sort of subsection of the Paleoverse, which is definitely an interesting example of the tides changing. And I don't mind this at all, and it seems like Brady doesn't either, because he and Discovery are both good friends now. So I'd say that things have really worked. By the end, the show, Dinoverse, and Paleoverse have decided to unite instead of fight, which I think is something that everyone would prefer. It is quite a weird underdog story, to say the least, that the show was originally shunned, but eventually became the most popular, and now voted as the best Dinotube show of 2020. It's oddly inspiring, to say the least, and definitely is a fun lesson in not giving up on your projects even when people hate them. And I'd say that it definitely worked in Discovery's favor, to say the least. But that's just me talking about the interesting behind the scenes of this show and its unexpected rise to the top. What's the actual show itself even about? What's the plot? Well, the plot is more or less a dinosaur epic featuring dinosaur YouTubers being depicted as figures and characters, with the main character being Dinosaur Discovery and his friends, such as Space Kid Productions, Dino Dude, Nick Osborne, and more, as they go on an adventure because they have to migrate, and where they eventually migrate to is the Jurassic Verse. As they pick up friends along the way, they eventually arrive at their destination, where the Jurassic Verse is revealed to be more sinister than originally believed, with such elements as an evil king and, weaponized diseases. It's a little weird, to say the least, but it's interesting enough. I'd say, though, that the worst part of it is actually the characters. The characters are definitely the biggest weakness, for some reasons that many people would find weird in almost any other circumstance. One of them being the names, since most of the characters are based off actual, dinosaur YouTube channels. So you have names like Datnactosaurus Boy and Kaijusaurus being major characters with major influence on the plot. So you're hearing these characters genuinely, unironically saying, "Oh, this is Datnactosaurus Boy. My friend Kaijusaurus was killed." It takes away from some of the serious factor that the show is trying so hard to have when you're constantly hearing the word "dat Nactosaurus boy." Although, to be fair, there are some characters like Patch and Charlie that aren't dinosaur YouTubers and are just character names, and those are a little easier to sympathize with. The other problem, and this is just down to laziness and not trying to rip out his own vocal cords, but all the characters sound the same and thus have minimal personality traits. So every character is kind of hard to distinguish because only a few of them actually have unique voices. Most of them just sound like Kyrian just speaking in his normal tone, but it's not as bad as it could have been, since Discovery does a great job at directing the camera towards the character that is speaking, making it 100% clear who is talking at all times, so you're never confused on who's talking and where the plot is going. You can understand the plot and you can understand which character's speaking, you just don't see any individuality in the characters, that's all. So while the characters are bland, you can at least tell when they're talking. Like, you can tell when Discovery's talking and when Patch is talking. So it's not all bad, but it's definitely not perfect either. Another thing, though, that I was weirdly complimenting before, but definitely is far from perfect, is the cinematography. The cinematography tends to have a lot of upward shots. The figures are almost never filmed from a middle or low angle. They're always filmed upwards, making them feel incredibly small. But this isn't necessarily a terrible thing, it's just a thing I've noticed that makes the cinematography kind of meh, and at certain points the lighting isn't exactly that great, especially during the cave navigation scene. The lighting was just not good. And there's a way to make lighting dark, but also good enough that you can actually see and decipher what's going on. There's a difference between good dark lighting and just bad lighting where you can't see anything. But that's just part of the execution. How do I like the story itself? I think the story itself is nice. It's a nice hero's journey. A hero goes on a quest to find a new home, and that new home turns out to be not as great as they originally believed, but they do make it great by the end of it. It is nice. It's a nice story, but at the same time, the tone is definitely a bit mixed, as with all of the kind of goofy parts of it that I just mentioned, such as really weird character names that are definitely out of the creator's control since he has to base them off of YouTubers, some parts of it are just kind of hard to take seriously, and that's kind of a problem because this series is meant to be, as I mentioned before, an epic. It's meant to be serious, and there aren't many jokes. It's a serious fantasy quest based off the Lord of the Rings, except it has a oddly goofy undertone that is never really realized, so you never laugh. You just find the tone conflicting, because you're hearing all these goofy dinosaur names go on a serious journey with zombie dinosaurs and tragic deaths. It's weird, but I do like it. Like, the story itself isn't so bad, and I do like the semi-seriousness of it, but I just wish that the series lightened up just a tad. Only a tad, though. I think if it lightened up just a tad, it could make some really funny but very well-spaced jokes about how goofy it is that dinosaur YouTubers are going on such serious journeys. But that's my opinion of it. I'd say it's a good show, and it's definitely more impressive the backstory behind the show itself that I admire. I admire Discovery for not quitting on it and making it into such a popular thing that people always like to talk about and always want to make spin-offs of nowadays. It's impressive, and I think that's why it does deserve to be the best Dinotube show, because it's managed to touch many Dinotubers, something that most shows just haven't this year. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this Dinotube achievement. Comment down if I should do any more end-of-year achievements, and see you guys next time.